The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. Their sleek, crystalline vessels dwarfed humanity's largest space stations, casting long shadows over the cities below. The world held its breath, waiting to see if this would be humanity's final day. In the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, Captain Smith stood before the main screen, studying the strange formations above. His weathered face showed no fear, only quiet determination. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency, monitoring the alien fleet's every move. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," reported Jack, his communications officer. The young man's hands moved steadily across his console, despite the tension in the air. "Put them through," Smith ordered, straightening his uniform. The screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, elegant creature with iridescent skin and multiple eyes. Its voice came through the translator with a hint of arrogance. "Greetings, primitive species. We are the High Council, rulers of 1,000 worlds. Our scans indicate your world holds promise as a resource center." Smith kept his voice level. "We welcome peaceful contact with advanced civilizations, but Earth is not a resource to be claimed. We are a sovereign species." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "How amusing. Our analysis shows your species barely qualifies as Class 3 sentients. You are endurance predators, yes, but hardly a match for our civilization. We have encountered many such primitive races. All now serve the High Council." Behind Smith, his crew continued their work, secretly activating Earth's defense systems. Their movements were careful, deliberate, giving nothing away to the alien observers. "Perhaps we could demonstrate our capabilities," Smith suggested. "Arrange a meeting to show you that humans are more than your scans suggest." The alien leader's eyes shifted in what looked like amusement. "Very well. We will permit a demonstration. It should prove entertaining, at least. Prepare your finest warrior. We will send coordinates for a suitable testing ground." The transmission ended, and Smith immediately turned to his crew. "Analysis. Their ships are powered by something we've never seen before," reported Mary from the science station. Her fingers flew over the displays as she spoke. "But their hull design suggests they're not used to sustained combat. They're built for show, not war." "They've never fought humans before," Smith said quietly. "And they're making the same mistake everyone makes. They think we're weak because we're not the strongest or the fastest." The crew nodded in agreement. Throughout history, humans had been underestimated. Other predators had bigger teeth, sharper claws, more powerful muscles. But none had humanity's stubborn determination, none could match their endurance, and none had their capacity for creative problem-solving. "They called us endurance predators," Tom spoke up from his tactical station. The former marathon runner smiled grimly. "They don't understand what that means. They don't know about persistence hunting, about how humans can track prey until it collapses from exhaustion." Smith looked at the alien ships on the screen again. Their elegant design spoke of a species used to quick victories, not long campaigns. They had no idea what they were dealing with. "Send word to all Earth Defense Forces," he ordered. "Full alert, but no aggressive moves. Let them think we're harmless for now. And contact the Olympic Training Center. We'll need their best for whatever test these aliens have planned." As his crew carried out his orders, Smith thought about humanity's long history of survival against impossible odds. These aliens saw humans as primitive because they lacked the High Council's advanced technology. They thought Earth would be an easy conquest, just another resource to exploit. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Humans hadn't clawed their way to the top of Earth's food chain by being weak. They hadn't survived ice ages, plagues, and countless disasters by giving up. And they certainly hadn't developed from cave-dwelling primates to a spacefaring civilization by submitting to anyone. The High Council was about to learn what every predator on Earth had learned over the course of evolution. Humans might not be the strongest species, but they were by far the deadliest. And unlike Earth's predators, These aliens hadn't had millions of years to learn to fear humans. They would learn that lesson soon enough. The testing ground chosen by the High Council was a massive arena built within their largest ship. Tom stood at the entrance, wearing simple athletic gear, running shoes, shorts, and a light shirt. The alien observers watched from their elevated platforms, murmuring among themselves at his basic appearance. "This is your champion." The High Council leader's voice echoed through the chamber. No armor, no weapons, no cybernetic enhancements. Captain Smith, standing near the observation area, smiled slightly. "This is Tom. He's a human athlete. Nothing more, nothing less." The alien leader waved one of its limbs dismissively. "Very well. The course before you contains obstacles that would challenge even our most enhanced warriors. You have 6 hours to complete it. Failure will prove your species' inferiority." Tom looked at the course stretching before him. It was a nightmare of climbing walls, rope bridges over pools of strange liquid, narrow beams across deep pits, and various other challenges that disappeared into the distance. The air itself seemed thicker here, probably adjusted to alien standards. He started stretching, a routine as familiar as breathing. The aliens watched in confusion as he went through his warm-up exercises. They didn't understand that humans had evolved to prepare their bodies for long exertion. To them, it looked like a waste of energy. "Begin." The command rang out. Tom started running. Not sprinting, not rushing, but maintaining a steady pace that any human distance runner would recognize. The aliens muttered in disappointment at his apparent lack of speed. The first obstacles were clearly designed to tire contestants quickly. Tom climbed the walls methodically, using technique rather than pure strength. When he reached the rope bridges, he didn't try to rush across. Instead, he found his rhythm and kept moving steadily. 1 hour passed, then 2. The aliens grew restless, then confused, then concerned. Their warriors usually either completed such courses quickly or failed spectacularly. But Tom kept going. He sweated, he breathed hard, but he didn't stop. "Impossible," one of the alien scientists muttered, checking their instruments. His body temperature should have killed him by now. His muscles should have failed. But they didn't understand human biology. They didn't know about sweat, about the human body's incredible cooling system. They didn't understand about runner's high, about the way human bodies adapted to prolonged exercise. 3 hours in, Tom reached what the aliens considered their ultimate challenge, a massive climbing wall in air that was almost too thin to breathe. Their warriors needed breathing equipment here. Tom simply slowed his pace, controlled his breathing, and kept climbing. "He should be unconscious," the alien leader hissed. "No species can maintain such effort for so long." Captain Smith watched with pride. This was what humans did best, not winning through overwhelming power, but through sheer, stubborn endurance. The ability to keep going long after other species would have given up. 4 hours passed, then 5. Tom was visibly tired now, but still moving. The aliens had fallen silent, watching in disbelief. Their instruments told them this was impossible, that no being could maintain such effort for so long. But Tom kept proving them wrong. In the final hour, he faced the last obstacle, a long run through increasingly heavy gravity. The aliens expected him to crawl. Instead, Tom adjusted his stride and kept running. Slower now, but still moving forward with the same relentless determination. When he crossed the finish line, with 20 minutes to spare, the silence in the arena was absolute. The aliens stared at the human who had just completed a course designed to be impossible. Tom walked over to his water bottle, took a long drink, and then did something that terrified the watching aliens more than anything else. He smiled and asked, "Want me to do it again?" The High Council leader's multiple eyes blinked rapidly. For the first time, there was fear in its voice as it addressed Captain Smith. What are your warriors like, if this is merely an athlete?" Smith's reply was calm, but his eyes carried a warning. Let's hope you never have to find out. The High Council's message arrived 12 hours after Tom's demonstration. Their massive hologram filled the United Earth Defense Force Command Center, towering over the assembled military leaders. Their voice carried none of its previous arrogance, replaced instead by cold fury. "Your deception cannot be tolerated," the council leader declared. "You have hidden your true capabilities from our scans. This offense carries only one punishment." The alien's multiple eyes narrowed. "Submit to our rule within 48 hours, or face extinction. We will not allow such a dangerous species to remain free." Commander Wells stood at the back of the room, watching the alien's threat display. Unlike the others, he smiled slightly. The aliens had just made their first major mistake. They had given humans a deadline, and humans had a long history of doing the impossible when given a time limit. As soon as the transmission ended, the room erupted into activity. Some wanted to negotiate, others to fight. A few suggested surrender. Wells waited until the noise died down before stepping forward. "They're scared," he said simply. Everyone turned to look at him. Think about it. They saw one human complete their impossible course. One ordinary human with no special training beyond athletics. Now they're wondering what our soldiers can do. Captain Smith nodded from his position near the main display. "They're also showing us their weakness. Their entire empire is built on quick victories and intimidation. They've never faced an enemy that doesn't break easily." "So what do you suggest?" asked one of the generals. "We can't match their technology. Their ships outclass ours in every way." Wells walked to the tactical display, bringing up images of the alien fleet. "We don't need to match them. We just need to outlast them. Their ships are beautiful, advanced, perfect." He paused. "And that's their weakness. They've never had to fight ugly." He began laying out his plan. The other leaders listened, their expressions changing from doubt to interest to fierce determination. It was crazy, dangerous, and would demand incredible endurance from every human involved. In other words, it was perfectly suited for humanity. The plan spread across Earth's defense forces. Soldiers and civilians alike began their preparations. The aliens watched from orbit, their scans showing only what seemed to be panic and disarray. They didn't understand that humans worked best under pressure. That deadline stress focused them rather than broke them. 47 hours after their ultimatum, the High Council opened a channel again. Their leader appeared, ready to accept Earth's surrender. Instead, they found Commander Wells waiting. "We've made our decision," Wells said calmly. The alien leader's expression shifted to something like satisfaction, expecting submission. Wells continued, "We reject your ultimatum. Completely." The alien's color changed rapidly, a sign of anger. "Then you choose extinction. Our weapons will." "No," Wells interrupted. "You don't understand. We're not rejecting your demands out of pride or fear. We're rejecting them because you've shown us something important." He leaned forward. "You've shown us that you don't understand what humans really are." The alien leader's rage was visible now. "We understand enough. You are a primitive, dangerous species that must be controlled." Wells smiled, and there was something in that smile that made the alien leader pause. "You're right about one thing. We are dangerous. But you're wrong about controlling us. You see, humans don't do well with control. We break it. Always have. Always will." He pressed a button, and displays lit up across the command center. "You gave us 48 hours, thinking we would spend it in fear. Instead, we spent it preparing. Your scans are about to detect thousands of small ships launching from Earth. Not fancy or beautiful ships, but tough, ugly vessels built for one purpose: to keep fighting no matter what." The alien leader's eyes widened as alerts began sounding across their fleet. Wells continued speaking, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's entire history of warfare. "You're about to learn something that every would-be conqueror of Earth has learned. Humans don't surrender. We don't break. And we absolutely do not accept ultimatums. His smile turned predatory. "You want to see what human warriors can do? Well, you're about to find out." The High Council's fleet never saw the first wave coming. Earth's ships weren't elegant or advanced, but they were piloted by humans who had trained their entire lives for space combat. The small, ugly vessels darted between the alien ships like angry wasps, striking at weak points that the Council's warriors had never thought to defend. "Impossible!" screamed the alien commander as another of their beautiful ships erupted in flames. They'd been awake for 20 hours. Their reaction times should be failing. But they didn't understand human combat stimulants. Coffee, energy drinks, and pure adrenaline kept the Earth pilots going. Where alien crews needed rest cycles every 8 hours, humans pushed through on caffeine and determination. In the command ship, Captain Smith coordinated the attacks. The aliens had expected a traditional space battle with ships firing at long range. Instead, they got human warfare, close, personal, and ruthlessly efficient. Earth's ships carried simple weapons, but they were aimed by pilots who understood something the aliens didn't. You didn't need to destroy an enemy ship to take it out of the fight. "Target their sensor arrays," Smith ordered. "Blind them first, then hit their engines." He watched as human pilots executed maneuvers that the aliens' computers insisted were suicidal. But humans had long experience doing things machines said were impossible. The alien ships' advanced shields proved useless against human ingenuity. Earth's forces had studied the shield patterns and found the micro-gaps in their coverage. The aliens had never bothered to fix these tiny flaws because no sane species would fly ships through spaces barely bigger than the vessels themselves. They didn't understand that humans had been flying through impossibly tight spaces since the first time someone said, "I bet I can fit through there." Hour after hour, the battle raged. The aliens kept expecting the humans to tire, to make mistakes, to give up. Instead, the attacks grew more precise as Earth's pilots learned from each engagement. Where alien crews grew frustrated with repeated failures, humans adapted and improvised. "Sir," reported Jack from his communication station, "the alien crews are requesting emergency rest cycles. They can't maintain combat focus." Smith nodded. He looked tired but alert, running on coffee and the kind of energy that came from protecting his home. "Push harder. They're breaking." The Council's mighty fleet began to fragment. Their perfect formation fell apart as human ships darted through their lines, striking from impossible angles. The aliens had never faced an enemy that attacked like this, that refused to follow proper combat protocols. "Their flagship is changing position," Mary announced from her station. "They're trying to retreat to regroup." But retreating from humans was a deadly mistake. In space, just like on the ancient savannas of Earth, humans were persistence predators. They didn't let wounded prey escape. "All ships, execute Operation Stampede," Smith ordered. Across the battlefield, Earth's vessels began moving in a pattern that looked like chaos to the alien observers. But it was organized chaos, designed to drive the alien fleet exactly where humans wanted them. The High Council's ships found themselves pushed toward Earth's moon. Their commanders thought they were being given room to retreat. They didn't realize they were being herded into a trap. "They're in position," Wells reported from his tactical station. "Lunar defense grid is ready." The aliens never knew humans had built weapons into the moon itself. Their sensors, designed to detect advanced energy signatures, missed the simple kinetic weapons hidden beneath the lunar surface. When the grid activated, it threw clouds of metal fragments into space, shredding the aliens' beautiful ships with basic physics that no shield could stop. As their fleet fell into disarray, the High Council received a transmission from Earth. It showed human pilots still at their stations, tired but determined. Many had been awake for over 30 hours, kept going by stimulants and sheer willpower. The aliens watched in horror as these supposedly primitive beings continued fighting well past the point where any sane species would have collapsed. The message was simple: "This is only the beginning. Still want to see what human warriors can do?" The High Council gathered in their emergency command center, watching recordings of the battle with growing horror. Their finest ships lay scattered across Earth's orbit, many crippled by weapons that their advanced technology said shouldn't work. But the recording showed something even more terrifying. Humans fighting through injuries that should have been fatal. "Play it again," ordered the council leader, watching as a human pilot continued fighting after their ship took damage that vented atmosphere. The pilot had sealed their suit's breach with repair tape and kept flying, ignoring what must have been extreme pain. "They're not stopping," whispered one of the council members. "We've hit them with weapons that would break any other species, and they keep fighting." The reports from their ground forces were even worse. Humans had started landing small teams on damaged alien ships, fighting their way through corridors in what they called warding actions. The Council's warriors, used to fighting at range with energy weapons, found themselves facing humans who would charge through fire to engage in close combat. In one recorded incident, a human soldier had been hit with a plasma blast that melted part of their armor. Instead of dying, they had removed the burning armor and kept fighting. The alien warriors who witnessed it fled their own ship, terrified of beings that could ignore such injuries. "Their neural patterns make no sense," reported the Council's chief scientist. "When wounded, their combat effectiveness increases instead of decreases. They produce chemicals that let them ignore pain. Some of them actually seem to enjoy battle." The council leader's color shifted to pale gray, a sign of deep distress. "How do we fight an enemy that doesn't break? That treats death itself as merely an inconvenience." More reports flooded in. Human ships were appearing near other council worlds, spreading the conflict across space. They weren't trying to hold territory or establish bases. Instead, they struck hard at supply lines and communication centers, then disappeared before the council's forces could respond. "They're hunting us," realized another council member, "like they did on their world's ancient planes. They don't need to win every battle. They just need to keep us running until we're too exhausted to fight." The humans had learned from each engagement, adapting their tactics faster than the council's strategic computers could analyze them. When the aliens developed countermeasures against one human technique, Earth's forces simply created new ones. In the council's detention centers, captured human soldiers proved equally baffling. They exercised constantly in their cells, staying combat-ready. Some seemed to treat their imprisonment as a simple inconvenience, almost a rest period. They shared food, told jokes, and maintained group cohesion in ways that defied the council's understanding of prisoner psychology. "Sir," a junior officer interrupted the council's meeting. "We've lost contact with the 7th Fleet. The humans, they're using our own ships against us." The council leader's eyes widened. Humans had not only captured council vessels, but learned to operate them in days, not the years of training their own crews required. They stripped the elegant ships down, removed the automated systems, and flew them in ways that violated all known principles of space combat. "We thought their primitive technology made them weak," the council leader said quietly. "But they don't rely on technology. They adapt to it, modify it, break it down, and rebuild it. Our perfection is our weakness against their savage efficiency." Reports from the front lines grew worse. Human soldiers fought in shifts, keeping constant pressure on council forces that needed regular rest cycles. They used simple projectile weapons that couldn't be blocked by energy shields. Some human ships deliberately crashed into larger council vessels, their crews fighting room by room through the crippled ships. "They're not just fighting a war," the chief scientist observed, watching new footage of human ships in action. "They're teaching the galaxy how to fight like them. Other species are learning their methods." The council leader looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, humanity was spreading like a virus through their perfect empire. They had awakened something that couldn't be stopped by technology or reason, something that had evolved to never give up, never stop hunting. "We didn't just underestimate them," the leader said. "We showed the galaxy that our kind of perfection can be broken by their kind of determination." Word spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, Enslaved species watched recordings of human battles against the High Council. They saw small Earth ships take down massive alien vessels. They watched human soldiers fight through impossible odds. Most importantly, they saw that the Council's perfect empire could bleed. The first rebellion started on a mining world where the Council kept insectoid workers in endless labor. The insects had always been considered peaceful, easy to control. But they had watched humans closely, learning. When they rose up, they didn't follow the logical patterns the Council expected. Instead, they fought like humans, dirty, desperate, and without pause. Commander Wells stood on his ship's bridge, watching reports flood in from across Council space. "It's spreading faster than we expected," he told Captain Smith over a secure channel. "Every species that breaks free is teaching others how to fight." The Council had built their empire on the assumption that advanced technology and perfect tactics would always win. They never prepared for enemies that would chew through their own arm to escape a trap, or crash a ship worth millions to destroy a target worth billions. They certainly never expected their slaves to learn such tactics. On a Council fortress world, a race of gentle floating creatures that had served as living computers for centuries suddenly refused their commands. They had seen humans fight while exhausted and learned that limits were often self-imposed. Their peaceful protest brought the Council's entire communication network to a halt. "The Council's trying to block information about the rebellions," reported Jack, monitoring communication channels. "But they can't stop it. Too many species are sharing stories about Earth's resistance." The stories spread in whispers and hidden messages. Tales of human endurance became inspiration for species that had never dreamed of fighting back. The Council's perfect control was breaking down world by world, system by system. In the prison camps, captured human soldiers taught other species how to resist. They showed them exercises to build strength, tactics for fighting larger opponents, ways to turn tools into weapons. Most importantly, they taught them that being weaker didn't mean being helpless. A race of small, supposedly harmless creatures that cleaned the Council's ships learned to sabotage engines during their work. They had watched humans use simple tools in clever ways and realized that their own cleaning equipment could disable massive vessels with a few careful adjustments. The Council's response was predictably logical. They increased security, added more automated systems, and built better weapons. But they were fighting a virus of ideas now, one that couldn't be stopped by force. Every species that learned to fight like humans became a new carrier of the infection of rebellion. "Sir," Mary called from her station, "the Council's trying to hire mercenaries to put down the rebellions. But the mercenary groups are refusing." Smith smiled grimly. The mercenaries had seen what happened to the Council's forces. They knew that fighting humans and their allies meant facing enemies that didn't follow normal rules of engagement, that would take devastating losses to achieve victory that never stopped coming. On a Council resort world, a species of entertainment workers that resembled colorful birds launched their own uprising. They had noticed how humans used their environment as a weapon and turned the luxury resort's own automated systems against their masters. The Council lost 1,000 ships before they could even respond. Reports came in of Council ships surrendering without a fight when they saw human vessels approaching. The Council's warriors, bred for perfect, controlled combat, broke under the psychological pressure of facing enemies that seemed to ignore death itself. "The Council's trying to call a meeting," Wells reported. "They want to discuss terms." But it was too late for terms now. The revolution had taken on a life of its own. Species that had served the Council for generations were discovering their own strength, their own capacity for the kind of determination they had seen in humans. In secure bases across Council space, rebels gathered to learn Earth's ways of war. They learned about guerrilla tactics, about endurance and persistence, about turning weakness into strength. Most importantly, they learned what humans had known all along, that any species could be deadly if they were willing to never give up. The High Council's grand meeting chamber, once a place of perfect order and control, now held representatives from every rebel species. The massive doors had been torn from their hinges by creatures The council had once considered docile. The elegant walls were scared by weapons fired by beings they had thought too primitive to fight. Captain Smith and Commander Wells stood among the gathered representatives, looking very ordinary compared to the exotic alien species around them. Yet every creature in the room watched the humans with a mixture of respect and carefully hidden fear. The council leader's color had faded to a dull gray, all arrogance gone from their multiple eyes. "We offer our complete surrender," they announced. "The High Council submits to the terms of Earth and its allies." Smith looked around the room slowly. Former slaves stood tall, bearing wounds and makeshift weapons like badges of honor. Species that had once bowed to the council now met their former master's eyes without fearing punishment. All of them had learned to fight, to endure, to persist. "Surrender isn't enough," Smith said quietly. "We need to ensure this never happens again." A representative of the insectoid species stepped forward. Their kind had turned mining equipment into weapons, fighting their way free with tools meant for breaking rock. "We propose a new alliance," they clicked. "Not an empire. A partnership of equals." The bird-like creatures that had turned luxury resorts into war zones added their voices. "Each species brings their own strength. We have learned this from humans. Perfect order creates perfect weakness. Diversity creates strength." Around the room, other species nodded in agreement. They had all learned from humanity, but each had added their own methods to what they had learned. The floating creatures had developed ways to use their natural abilities for combat. The small cleaning species had turned their understanding of ship systems into a devastating advantage. "Your empire fell," Wells told the council leader, "because you thought advancement only meant better technology. You forgot that determination, creativity, and the will to survive are the deadliest weapons in the galaxy." The council leader looked at the human representatives with all four eyes. "We scanned your world before we came. We saw your wars, your conflicts, your constant fighting. We thought it made you primitive." They paused. "We didn't understand that it made you unbeatable." Smith walked to the center of the room, his footsteps echoing in the silence. "Humans don't want an empire. We don't want to rule. What we want is something the High Council never understood: the freedom to find our own path, and the right to defend that freedom." The gathered species murmured in agreement. Many of them had developed their own combat styles, combining human persistence with their natural abilities. The galaxy had learned that any species could be deadly if they had something worth fighting for. "We will help build this new alliance," Smith continued. "We'll teach anyone who wants to learn how to defend themselves, but we won't control them. That's the difference between us and the Council. We don't want perfect obedience. We want strong allies." The council leader signed the surrender documents with shaking limbs. As they did, screens around the room showed council ships across the galaxy standing down, their crews surrendering to rebel forces. The perfect empire that had ruled for thousands of years had been broken in a matter of months by species they had thought inferior. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. The High Council's worlds were freed, their slaves liberated. The new alliance grew, but not through force or conquest. Species joined because they wanted to learn, to grow stronger, to ensure they would never be enslaved again. Earth became known not as a primitive world, but as a place that bred warriors unlike any the galaxy had seen. Not because humans were the strongest or most advanced, but because they never learned when to quit, never accepted defeat, and never stopped fighting for what they believed in. The High Council's remaining members retreated to a single world, their power broken. They had learned the hard way what every predator on Earth had learned over millions of years: that humans were far more than their technology suggested, far deadlier than their appearance indicated. They had learned that the deadliest species in the galaxy wasn't the one with the best weapons or the most advanced technology. It was the one that would never stop fighting, never stop trying, never give up no matter the odds. They had learned, too late, that they never should have threatened Earth. Because humans didn't just fight back, they taught the entire galaxy how to fight back with them.